All right. How's it going, Ian?
It's going great. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Welcome to episode 3 of Behind the Marquee.
We made it
number
three
3. We've
episodes.
done it. So, my name's Mike. You're Ian, obviously. And today we're going to talk about.
We're
Uh,
gonna talk about you, man. So last week, last week, because we're in episode three. So we went through our introduction, how we got started, how we met, all that. Then last episode was my experience working with the Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers.
right.
And one of the things we want to talk about is okay, so and probably a lot of people who are watching this probably might know a little bit about who I am or whatever. We're not going to get into that, but
That's good.
we don't really know that much about you. And the thing is, I know you, so I know what you can do, and I know what you've done, and we're going to talk more about that. And maybe everybody who doesn't know knows that you actually you had a podcast before this, which is
Right.
where this is coming from. But you've done a lot of interviews with people, and I wasn't even aware of how many people you've interviewed or even the caliber of people that you interviewed.
Yeah, we've done a lot. I've been running MediaMics.com now for 15 years, over 15 years.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned in our second interview, in our second podcast, that my first interview was Denzel Washington, which we discussed. And then I got cold called by Keanu Reeves.
Right.
Those are two fun stories, but like I've interviewed probably like I would say about 2 to 3 thousand people in the
See,
last 15 years. I
that's
can't even remember everyone.
right. That's a staggering number. I mean, really, 2,000, 2 to 3,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, over 15 years, I'm sure probably makes a lot of sense. But, I never really always knew, who you interviewed. You know,
Yeah.
I knew you once in a while you would tell me who you were interviewing or post something up on Facebook and I'd see it, be like, hey, way to go. That's awesome.
Sure.
And then of course, you interviewed me, but that's, whatever, who. So what, like, how did you get started doing that?
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like literally back in 2010, I said to myself, "Hey, I want to get free movies." Like I want to go like cuz I used to get like free tickets to go see movies in Manhattan when I lived in New York. I
Right.
used to get free tickets to go see like a sneak preview of Kick Ass or, one of those movies. Like, I get to see it like a week or two early before anyone. And I was like, I saw these press people there, and I was like, well, how did they get tickets? Like, because I had to like wait online and I had to do like a lottery. I'm like,
Yeah.
these people are press. Like, I want to be like them. So literally, like, I don't fool around. When I start something, I start something. So literally, like that week that I had this idea, I said, I think I'm going to start a website so I could be a member of the press. And literally, I was like, I started the website. It was called moviemics.com. That's what it was called in 2010. We upgraded to Media Mics in, I think, 2012, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, no, 2011.
Yeah.
August of 2011. I migrated it from movie mics to media mics because we were just doing too much. We expanded out of movies and went into TV and theater and everything else.
Yeah.
But so I started that and literally I said to myself, that's great. Like if I get free movies, but like, can I interview celebrities too? Because like I was talking, like this goes back. I could date back to 1998
Okay.
when there was a website. It's not up anymore. It's gone. It was called myvideostore.com. And I interviewed Darren Aronofsky, the director of Pi, Requiem for a Dream,
Okay.
Black Swan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like the guy that did the video in for the Sphere in Las Vegas. He did like
Hmm.
like the main video that plays in the Sphere in Las Vegas right now.
Okay.
So he's done like tons of movies. The Fountain with Hugh Jackman, and I interviewed him back in 1998, and I was like, that was pretty cool. Like I still have the interview printed up because the website's gone now.
Right.
I actually have a physical print up of my interview with Darren, and it was cool. It was like two questions. That's all I got to ask, but I interviewed him, and I was like, I want to do more like that.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Denzel's people, and they reached out to me, and they were like, if you can come tomorrow for press day of August Wilson's Fences on Broadway, you can interview Denzel. And I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. Like what do I do? I've never done an interview before.
Now, was it just an interview between you and him, or were you in like the press box?
No, no, he was sitting at a table. I was sitting at a table. He had his arms up like this, and we were just bullshitting for like a half an hour.
Okay. So it was
So,
just you and him. You got to do like a one-on-one interview.
yep, we did that. And then I also interviewed that same day, Viola Davis. She's
Oh,
super, super famous now. She was in The Help and, a Suicide Squad and a bunch of other stuff. But she was also in this show. So I didn't even know I was interviewing her that day. I just pulled up to this restaurant in Manhattan, and they were like, "All right, well, first we have Viola, then we have Denzel," and I was like, okay." So on the spot, I had to write down questions really quick. Luckily, I knew the show previously, so I knew who she was playing, and I was aware of the character, so I had some insight. I did my research. So, from there, man, it just blew up.
and when was that again?
That was 2010, so 15 years
Okay,
ago.
all right.
March
Oh,
of
okay.
2010. Yeah.
That's the other thing is, because you had that one thing in '98, and then
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. I've had like a web presence since 1996. In
okay,
96, I ran a website called Box Office Wizard. And what that was that it was like a statistics page of all the films and how much they grossed. And I made like my own images and I
yeah,
published them to the web. This is like pre like Windows, like this is like Windows like 95, like
I was gonna
really
say
old.
Flash back then.
Yeah. Oh, it's super old. And, obviously that site is no longer around, but I
Right.
ran that from 96 to 2000. And then I took like a 10-year break. And then I started Media Mics.
Okay.
And from there, you know, um, I've started like three other websites since then. So, and I've interviewed, like I said, like 2,000 people, like everyone from like, I don't know, like Clive Barker, from Hellraiser. I interviewed
Oh,
him. That was really cool. Clive Barker, Tommy Chung from Cheech and Chong.
nice.
That was pretty cool. He was a blast to talk to.
Yeah.
I interviewed Colin Hanks, you know,
Okay.
Tom Hanks' son.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
For he was in a movie called Lucky back then. That was a good one.
Right.
Richard Dreyfuss from Jaws. Christian Bale, from Newsies and Batman.
Okay. Was that no? When you entered it, was that before Batman or
That
what?
was post Batman. Post Batman.
So was there like after American Psycho?
Yo, yeah, oh yeah, no, it was
Okay.
2017.
Okay.
So yeah, like it wasn't that long ago. And Oscar Isaac from the new Star Wars movies.
Wow.
Man, I mean, I even did some fun ones, like really cool ones. And believe it or not, this is like some of my biggest hits. I interviewed. Have you seen The Shining?
Of course.
So The Shining, I interviewed the bartender from The Shining.
Okay.
He's no longer with us. His
Yeah.
name was Joe Turkel. He was also in the original Blade Runner. And I interviewed the woman from the bathtub in room 237.
Yeah.
Sounds like a small role because she's only in it for like, like 40 seconds, 50 seconds
Right.
before she transforms into like the old lady that scared me to death when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
So I found her online and literally, I was like, listen, I would love to interview you. And she's like, but why? I was just in the movie for a few seconds. And I was like, trust me. I'm like, people are going to want to hear, like, like what was like working with Stanley Kubrick and Jack Nicholson.
I think anybody from that film, that's one of those films, like anybody who had, even if it was just a small part, doesn't matter, because it was such an iconic movie and so, memorable
Yeah.
that even if you did just the slightest little thing in that movie, people are going
Yeah.
to want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And
Oh, no. It's crazy, dude. Literally, she is my biggest interview. Like,
really,
even bigger than Denzel.
huh?
Like, she has like thousands and thousands of hits on this interview. She sadly passed away a few years ago too. So
Yeah.
now it's even become more popular since
Well,
she's passed away.
I think one question people are going to want to know is like anybody who's probably watching this might even be saying, you know what, this is something that I want to do or I've always wanted to get into because
Right.
nowadays with the internet and podcasting, it used to be if you wanted to be press you had to go to journalism school. Now just if you have a computer, you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, like I studied a lot.
Right.
Like I studied like the basic model, how to do it, what kind of questions to ask, how to run a website. I've been through like three or four variations of Media Mics. I keep updating it, and like every couple years, I do a
Yeah.
whole new outlook, a whole new outlay, and I learn new things. But honestly, your question is WordPress. That's
WordPress.
how I make these websites. WordPress.
Right. But as far as like getting in touch with the people,
IMDb.
and you can get their information that way, like their
Some
agent.
people you can, some
Yeah.
people you can't. Like I'm like right now with the movie that I'm making, Jaws Goes to the Bahamas, a documentary. I'm trying to reach out to all these people from 1987, but
Mhm.
some of them don't have contacts. So
Right.
I have to dig and dig and dig and research and reach out to people that knew them, that knew them, that knew them, and that's how I do it. It's like it's like a journalism.
Right.
I'm like a journalist. Like I dig deep and I have to find these people.
And that I think is probably one of the hardest part.
Oh
Probably the
yeah,
hardest part.
oh yeah,
Is it's not so much getting everything set up. WordPress is great and getting all
right. Yeah,
it's
it's easy enough. Right.
getting the content. And a lot of these people, you know, I think a lot of people are probably going to be intimidated at first, and they
Yeah.
might think, you know, well, I'll never get a chance to meet Denzel and do an interview with him.
Right. Yeah.
If you just try and you can do it.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean, I just reached out. They said yes, and because of them, it started my whole site. I mean, they could have told me no.
right.
Now I've asked again to get Denzel since then, and I've been told no. But I was like, I've already interviewed him once. I was like, why can't I do
Yeah.
it again? But it's been harder to get him, I guess, because he's been on, higher projects since then.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
even back then, I mean, doing fences,
yeah,
I
Fences
mean,
was a big
so,
show.
yeah, he's always been pretty high caliber.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
So,
Fences
but
was on point. It's a really fantastic play. If you've never heard of it, August Wilson, wrote it, and phenomenal play. It's
it was
just
made
it's
into a
outstanding.
movie too,
That's
right?
correct. It was also made into a movie
I
with
saw the movie.
Denzel.
Yeah.
So yeah, the play was phenomenal, and the movie is fantastic. So
Yeah. See, I only got a chance to meet him once, and that was on an audition. for
That's
St.
cool.
Elsewhere. So he was in the casting office, and this was like way before he was even, you know, he was just St. Elsewhere famous. He
Sure.
wasn't,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I knew him from the show because I always watched the show. I liked the show as a kid, and he was
Right.
one of my favorite characters. And it was just, I was just like flabbergasted to see him. And he must have been either producing or directing or written like the episode
That's
because that's the
cool.
only reason why he would have been in the casting office. But it was one of those things I did get a little starstruck when I saw him. So I think,
Yeah.
sometimes it can hurt your acting if you get starstruck because someone's in the, you know, but
Yeah. I wasn't allowed to take photos of Denzel,
right.
but I slipped the photographer $20 and he took some photos of me and him talking.
Oh, cool.
So I do have some,
Yeah, yeah.
which is
Um,
cool. So
what would you say would be your three most memorable interviews?
um
Not favorite, but at least memorable. I mean, if you want to say favorite, go ahead, but
yeah, I would say Ringo Starr
I got a question for you on that one. Yeah.
has to be one of my biggest,
Yeah,
hands down. Um Nicolas Cage was, I'm like the biggest Nicolas Cage fan. I think
right.
everything he does is gold. And some of it's crap, but it's still gold. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I still love it. He's just like fantastic. And
Willy's Wonderland.
yeah, oh my God. Yeah, Willy's Wonderland, man. That's no joke. That movie's awesome. So, and then, so like I've already said Keanu, I've said, I would probably say Norman Reedus was a big one, from The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
I interviewed him twice back in the day, and he actually broke my website
Wow.
because right when I started, I interviewed him, and this was at the peak of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And he got so much traffic, and Boondock Saints at the time, they were so popular.
Okay.
2009, 2010. And
Yeah.
he broke the site. It crashed
Wow.
because he posted my interview for me. Like, because we used to talk all the time. We used to
Yeah.
talk to each other. And he's like, hey, Mike, I'll post your review on my Facebook or my Twitter or whatever it was. And he posted it, and thousands and thousands of people came and broke
That's
the
really
fucking
cool.
site right away.
That's really cool.
So that was a fun one. What's your question about Ringo?
Well, that's just it. I mean, when you get to, I mean, everybody that you mentioned, I mean, definitely Denzel, Keanu Reeves, Norman Reedus. I mean, these are all, really big people, but
Right,
for someone like Ringo Starr,
right.
who is such a part of, rock and roll history,
Yeah.
and like, what do you ask somebody like that probably hasn't been asked since the 60s,
Yep.
So that's
That's
where
one of my main goals is that when I do an interview, I try and research like unique things. You know what I mean? For
yeah,
Ringo, honestly, it wasn't hard because he came out with a new country album and it was his first country album in 50 years.
right.
So the questions were pretty much based around his new country album, working with this guy T Bone Burnett, who also did like Crazy Heart, Walk the Line, all these other popular movies.
Yeah.
Um, so it was basically just that. Yeah, I just try to come up with the most clever, interesting questions that I would want to be asked. I'm not going to ask him what was your favorite, Beatles song.
Because he's
He's
probably
heard
gonna
that 3,000 times this week. You know what I mean? So I try to make it fun. That's really it.
The only question I would never ask this of him, but I've always wanted to know this, like especially in today. There was obviously a rival between, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
Right, sure.
Now, nowadays, the Rolling Stones, they're still touring. They don't have a drummer, and they really don't have a bassist. You have the two Beatles. You have Paul and you have Ringo. One's a bassist, one's a drummer. Why not come together,
I know.
start a band, and you can do some mashups? Like, who wouldn't want to hear a mashup of "Hey Jude, Get Off of My Cloud"? I
Dude,
think
I'm telling you, that's actually a great question. Like, why haven't they come together to do like a little reunion?
right, but you can't really ask that of Ringo Starr.
I know, I
So,
know. I would probably ask,
yeah, see,
but
I'd be horrible at this job. I couldn't do it, and because the other thing is, and not that I'm putting myself in any sort of category of these people, but you know, being asked the same questions over and over and over
oh
again,
yeah,
it's like, okay, you have to do it because they just, you know, they just want to hear it from you. That's why they're asking you. They probably already know the answer. They just want to know that you answered their question.
oh yeah.
So
I've been down the line.
yeah,
I've been yelled at by some people. Like
um,
I interviewed Charlie Daniels, from Charlie Daniels Band.
yeah,
Devil went down to Georgia. Freaking awesome guy. But like I know I asked him a question and he was like, really? Like I haven't heard that once or twice. But I was like, but I really want to hear your answer, like I
yeah.
don't, so like you gotta watch on those. Like I had Crispin Glover once yell at me, from Back to the Future.
Well, yeah, he just seems a little like,
He was unique. So,
yeah,
but he yelled at me. He's like these questions are like whatever, and that's like right when I started, like 2010. I was
wow,
like just after Denzel. Like I didn't even know what I was doing. I just wanted to interview him because he was in Alice in Wonderland, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, and I was
okay.
like, I love Back to the Future. So I asked him questions about Back to the Future, and he's like, "Why are we talking about this?" He's like, "I want to talk about Alice in Wonderland," and I was like, "Oh, sorry, like I didn't know, like I wasn't
Everybody
allowed to
knows
bring up
Back to
old
the
shit."
Future. Like that's what everybody knows him from.
You know
But
what I mean? Like, if I told you he was in Alice in Wonderland, you're like, what, where? Like, what role, Like, it's
yeah,
not like huge, you know what I mean?
right.
So, oh, I thought of another one we did. We did Ryan Reynolds before he was popular,
Oh,
like,
really?
like dating back, let me think, I think it was 2015, like like just before he started Deadpool.
Okay.
Like just before he got mega famous. It was for a film called Selfless. No one even remembers it. It was a sci-fi film.
Oh, I don't think I've heard of it.
Yeah, I mean, very few people have. I don't think it even made more than $10 million in the box office.
Wow.
If I'm not mistaken, yeah, it was not a big film. So it made 30 million worldwide in the US.
What the budget was.
Yeah, and the budget was 26 million.
Didn't do that
So
good.
it didn't, it only made 12 million in the US. It
Yeah.
made less than half its budget in the US. So
Wow.
this was before he was like mega popular.
Yeah.
But we interviewed him. That was pretty cool. So
Okay,
we've
I'm
done
pretty
some
sure
pretty big names, man. It's
there's
been
probably
fun.
another hard guy to get a hold of.
Oh, today, forget it.
Yeah.
Like unless I was at like a panel, like with him there. Like
Yeah.
I can never get like a one-on-one with him. Like I'm big, but I'm not big enough. Like you have to be like Variety or Hollywood Reporter.
Right.
Like someone like that.
How many people is this going to reach?
Right. It,
That's what
it
they're going to
it
want
has
to.
to reach 10 million people. You know what I mean? And then my site gets a solid like 50K a month. Like not bad. But whatever. It's hard. But
But
I
what
take
are
who I
some
can get
other,
and I kind of go from there.
what's some other advice? Because I'm just thinking, people who are watching this, like, hey, this is what I want to do. And I mean, obviously, you have a passion for doing it, and that's
Yeah.
obviously what drives you to do it, which is good.
Right.
You got to have that number one thing. You love movies, you're a fan of movies, you're a fan of these people, but so the excitement for you, it's there to interview them, but you're also doing it because you want to make something happen with it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
for other people, they might, have the same thing, but they might be a little nervous, about
I'll
doing
tell you, dude, it's super easy. Like you would think the hardest part of interviewing Denzel when you had no experience at all, you just realize he's just a guy.
Yeah,
Like he's just a regular guy from Mount Vernon, New York.
right.
He's just sitting with his arms on the table, looking at me, going like, "Talk to me, Mike."
Yeah.
And we just had like the best conversation. And
Yeah.
that's when I realized that these people are, they're very talented and they are, on a different level sometimes, but they're just regular freaking people.
Right.
It's just a job for them. Sometimes, they do their job and then they, love gardening, like you don't know. That's stuff I try to figure out about them. You know what I mean? Like, what do you do when you're not being a super megastar? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And for some people, that's all they know how to do is be a super mega.
And that's also true.
I always tell people is like if ever you meet a celebrity, whether it's on the street or even if you go to like a Comic-Con or a convention, and there's now usually if a celebrity is there, then they're there for a specific reason. That's to sign autographs and ask your answer your questions.
Sure, sure.
Also note that if they have a line, they've already been asked that question probably 50 times just in the last
That
minute.
day. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But if you meet somebody outside, of a situation like that, you see a celebrity in a grocery store or something, and you want to say, you, because you always want to go up to that person and say, I'm a huge fan. I love your work.
Yeah. I
And
mean, yeah, sometimes that's not acceptable too,
a lot of times they'll be very dismissive about it, which
Yeah.
might seem rude, but understand that, they've already heard that. I
Yeah.
always tell people if you can find something else to talk about, just anything, just make it up, the weather, you
Yeah.
know, the store or whatever, and they're more likely to sit down and talk to you. They're more likely, just treat them like a person.
I have a perfect story for that. I met Ethan Hawke
Okay.
in Montauk, New York,
Yeah.
like at the lighthouse, like at like the main lighthouse in Montauk, and
Mhm.
he was there with his daughter, and he's walking around, and I was like, "Holy shit, dude! I love you." You're I'm a big fan, and
Yeah.
I didn't approach it like I was just like, "Can you like believe this view?" I turned it around. I wasn't like, tell me about, waking life, behind, whatever it was before sunrise or, like whatever, he has a million movies, you know what I mean? I said, this is a beautiful view, isn't it? And we started talking about the view, shook hands and said, have a great day,
Yeah.
because he's just a normal dude with his kid. Like I didn't want to bother him and be like, tell me about all your movies. You know what I mean? I was like, just try to make it like shooting the shit.
Yeah.
Like this is fun. Like how me and you met. Ian. Like I was nervous when I first met you because I was like, this guy is the guy from Christmas Story. Like I watch this movie every single year. I know it seems like maybe not a big deal to you, but like when I first met you guys, I was like nervous. I was like this is so cool, like this is,
Right.
and but then I realized obviously we went out, just a regular guy.
You got drunk.
Yeah, we got drunk, down to earth, down to earth, regular
But
guy,
I'm not
man.
saying you should always buy a celebrity a drink. You
No,
That'll do it, in case they're, trying to get out, trying to stay sober. But Yeah, and I remember there was one time I was working on a project and it was with the Henson Company,
Okay, sure. That's
and
cool.
I was outside and Brian Henson was on the set.
We
At the,
interviewed him too, by the way.
say what?
I said we interviewed him too, by the way.
Oh man, I'd
He's the
love to.
coolest guy ever. Don't even get me started. That's a whole other day.
Right, he was. He was one of the nicest guys I've
Oh my
ever met.
God. So amazing.
And I was outside. I'm not trying to encourage start smoking, but a lot of this stuff happened because I was a smoker and I was outside having a
I've been
cigarette.
there. Yep. It always worked better when you had a
And
cigarette.
he
Yeah.
comes out and he's lighting a cigarette and he's having a cigarette. And I'm like, I'm standing next to Brian Henson right now.
That's so
Now,
cool.
I
Right.
met his dad, and now here's his son. And to me, Brian, for whatever you want to say, Brian is just as good. He's a great puppeteer, and he
Right.
really knows what you know, he's worked on all those projects. He was Hoggle for God's sakes.
That's what I mean, dude. Labyrinth. It's crazy,
So
right?
he knows what he's doing, and I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm working on this project. I'm basically an employee, and but I don't want to just come at him with like, "Hey, tell me about Gonzo," or Beaker, who designed So I had to
Sure.
just think of something like because we were in Canada, so I said something about, Canada, and we just started talking, and he was really nice. And then I told him the story about when I met his dad.
That's cool.
So, which we could maybe do that for another day.
All right. No, that sounds like it would be a great story, man. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it
But
was one of them. Yeah.
I just say, just if you want to do it, research, try to come up with a unique angle,
Hmm.
and you can't be afraid to go for it. I got told no 5,000 times, and I got told yes, 100. You know what I mean? Like, I got so many more no's than I did yeses, over
Yeah.
the last 15 years. But I got a good 2,000 people, here, there,
Yeah.
and everywhere, just because I followed up and, I did it,
Did you always take like no as the final answer, or would
oh,
you
that's the problem. I'm a I'm a son of a bitch. Like, you tell me no, that means no for like this week.
right?
Like,
Okay.
I follow up in like 6 weeks and I'm like, hey, remember me? Anything change?
Yeah.
And I've gotten people based on that.
Okay.
Who was it? John Carpenter.
Okay.
I
Wow.
got told no like 5 times. And I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. Not a problem. Tried back next year. Nah, he's busy with another thing. Tried back, like 6 months later. Got him. You know what I mean?
Wow. Okay.
Like, you can't take no for an answer because they're busy at the time. Like it's never like a hard pass. At least I
Right.
don't treat it as like it is. And because of that, I've gotten a lot of things where I was told no.
Yeah.
So it's always good to follow up because there's always that chance that you could get it. So just keep
Okay.
just keep trying. That's my
Yeah. I think that's
advice.
probably the one thing people are going to be, you know, they'll ask, they'll hear no, and they'll never go back.
No, you got to always keep trying. You
Okay.
know, I don't be annoying. You know what I mean? Like, these people do
Right.
have, they do work hard and they do get a lot of requests, but just follow up nicely. Hey, how you doing? Remember me from 6 months ago? I just want to follow up and see if we could do this thing.
Mhm.
And sometimes it works. Sometimes I still get a no. Like, I was like, hey, I've interviewed Denzel already. What do you think for time number two? They're like, he's just too busy, Mike. And I'm like, I get it. I'll try again, and that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, stuff like that, man. You just got to keep trying. Can't
Well,
give up.
maybe we'll get a chance to get some people on the show.
Oh, we're gonna do that, man. I have great ideas already.
I'd love to try and get John Carpenter back,
I can get him. I still have his phone number.
because I've always wanted to ask him. I heard because he was friends with Bob Clark.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
The story.
Yeah. Director of Christmas Story, of
Always
course.
wanted to ask him, and I've heard this a couple times, but it was Bob who kind of gave him the idea for Halloween.
Oh, that's cool.
So because Bob did
Black Christmas.
Black
Yeah.
Christmas that took place around Christmas time, and John was like, "Hey, you gonna do a sequel? You should do one about like during another festive season."
Right.
Bob was like, "I don't want to do it. I want to get out of the horror idea." And
Oh my God. That's
John
so
was like, "Well, do
funny.
you mind if I do something with it?" He's like, "Yeah, go ahead."
That's so awesome. I love it, man. That's cool. That'd be a good interview. Listen, anything's possible, dude. We just gotta, we're just getting started here. We're trying to build a fan base. Once things start running, full speed, I see us getting some people, man. I think it'll be a
Since we're
blast.
talking about Black Christmas, I'm wearing my great Southern, from my good
I,
friend Phil Gillen,
I
who's in
love it.
Miami, Florida, who is the son of Jeff Gillen, who played the
Okay.
Santa Claus in
Yeah,
Christmas.
Santa Claus. Yeah, yeah, of course.
Also played this guy on the phone in Black Christmas.
Oh my God, I love it. And you can see I'm wearing a Halloween 3 shirt, which
We gotta
is,
get Phil. We gotta get Phil on this show. He'd be a good person to talk to.
I'm telling you, man.
Actually, we're gonna get you on the show.
Yeah, you hear that? You're on next. We'll get you on. All right, brother, man. Well, listen, this has been great. I appreciate, allowing me to showcase. I've never really been interviewed before. I feel like it was kind of cool.
Yeah, you needed it. It was your turn.
Thanks, brother, man. I appreciate it, man. Well,
Go back
listen,
and forth. We'll do one for me, one for you, and then we'll get other people on the show as well.
yeah. I think it's, I think people will find interesting.
Yeah.
So,
So,
all right, my man. Well, listen, until next time. I'll see you
all right,
later, all
man.
right?
And we'll update everybody on the next show what's going on with the documentary.
Yes. Our next show will focus on a documentary. Jaws Goes to the Bahamas, a documentary, obviously. And we'll talk about that next time. So,
We're still accepting money, so
yes, we are crowdfunding currently. So, if you want to do it, it's jawstherevengedoc.com. DOC.com. And you could donate money and help us out, and that'll be wonderful. So,
perfect.
all right, brother, man. Take care.
Bye, man.